let me introduce Mike Gilmetti to introduce our first speakers.
I want to thank Jim Wennerman and the Bay Area Council. I've been on the board for some time, and I laud its advocacy efforts to making the Bay Area a better place to live and do business at the same time. Today, I wanted to introduce a couple of very important people. Governor Jerry Brown, I met when he was then Mayor Jerry Brown and had the pleasure to collaborate and work with him as he envisioned the build out of Oakland in his 10K plan over 10 years ago. But really, I've come to introduce our host mayor. It's my pleasure to introduce Mayor Ed Lee. He's the 43rd mayor of this great city, and he's also the first Asian American mayor. Mayor Lee was approved by the Board of Supervisors in 2011 and subsequently won election later that year. Mayor Lee has made construction of 30,000 new housing units his #1 priority, and we should all applaud his leadership on this most critical issue. It is near and dear to everyone's hearts in the Bay Area as prices have risen and we have acute need to house our middle class. So with that, it's my great pleasure to introduce Mayor Ed Lee.
Wow, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 3-time World Series champion City County of San Francisco. Yes, can't be a Dodgers fan today, I'm sorry. Well, I know the governor's anxious to talk with all of you. I just wanted to give you a warm welcome and to let you know that we have a lot to look forward to in working together on not only just our city and county, but the entire region. I will address many of you this afternoon in camaraderie with Mayor Libby Schaft and Sam Liccardo as we do an afternoon panel that I know you'll enjoy hearing from us together talk about regionalism. But today, I have the pleasure and honor of introducing a man that's historically a figure in our state of California. Governor Brown is in his 4th historic term as the governor of our great state of California. He's been and he's always been a steady hand at the wheel for California during many challenging times. He balances that historic character of him about long-term fiscal prudence with the need to pay down debt while still enticing all of you to invest in the success of our city. And today, with the improving economy, the governor's investing billions of dollars into education, healthcare, affordable housing, infrastructure, combating climate change, and it literally sets our state up for success. Just last month, the governor took action to help San Francisco kickstart construction of thousands of affordable housing units for our low-income and middle-class families, something that is near and dear to me, as Michael mentioned, and it allows us in our city to deliver housing to growing neighborhoods ahead of schedule. I can't thank the governor more for helping us build more affordable housing in our city. And for that and everything else he does for our state, California is headed in the right direction. It is my privilege and honor to introduce to you our governor, Governor Jerry Brown.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I can't remember how many times I've done this. Probably a dozen. I don't know. I haven't been doing it as long as Willie Brown. I'm glad he's here to, as a strong pillar of the Bay Area Council. Very important. You come at a good time. San Francisco is booming. California is definitely back with over 1.5 million jobs since the trough of the recession. A lot of things are coming back. Not perfect. We always have lots of problems. But if you look around the country, you look around the world, the inevitable challenges of a big, complicated state, we're dealing with stuff. And we'll always have more to do, but I think it would be good just to mention a few things. The most obvious, of course, was the $27 billion deficit is now a surplus. That's the first critical. But It's a surplus that could disappear with the twinkle of an eye if I don't maintain vigilance. And it's very difficult for one very important reason. Government does a lot of good things, schooling, health care, environment, public safety, roads, trains. We're always doing something good. Now, you might say there's some things go wrong. You read that in the papers every day. But basically, the mission is the fundamental work of our larger society. So people have all these proposals. And if we spent them all, we'd be billions. We'd be right back into deficit. So we got to say no. But when we say no, we're not saying no to a bad. We're saying no to a good, because that's what government does. And all the requests for more programs, more expansion of programs, are all requests for good things. But if you get too many goods, you can get a bad. And the bad is a fiscal instability that has plagued our state for a long time. And that instability has grown in the last 15 years. Very different than it was 40 years ago. The revenue goes up, the revenue goes down. In the last Great Recession, I think there was a loss somewhere between 60 and 80 billion. The estimates are, when we have another recession, we'll probably lose about 40 billion of state revenue over a period of 3, maybe 4 years. So that's always looming out there. And we know recessions are inevitable. We've had 10 since World War II. The average length is about 5 years. We're already past that. The longest is 10. So we have to plan in a very unpredictable, cyclical flow of money, and that makes it difficult. Well, the voters gave us a rainy day fund, which was Proposition 2, and that provides a cushion. But it's very hard to maintain that cushion and expand it when there's so many good claims and requests and programs that are waiting to be funded. But we're doing that, and each year we do a little more. But we still, in spite of that, haven't been able to keep a strong fiscal balance in Sacramento. Now, some of the larger problems that the country and the state faces, we're dealing with. Take something like immigration. In Washington, they are completely flummoxed by what to do. Some are very hostile on the right, don't want to do anything. And then there are others in the middle that I'm not sure what they can do. But in California, we're not waiting. We have millions of people here who are not documented, and they're working, and they're paying taxes, and their kids are going to school, and they're getting sick. So we have to deal with that. And we've done it by, first of all, making it possible for someone who's here, although not with documentation, can get a driver's license. And already 250,000 people have taken advantage of that. So what's amazing is people have been going to work and driving illegally. And they've now been able to get this certificate that legitimates their work. And one of the first times I really got a sense of this, I was visiting some farm, some strawberry fields in Monterey County. And all the people who were working there, they were speaking Spanish. I presume that many of them were undocumented, and yet in the parking lot nearby, there was 30 or 40 cars. I just wondered, do they have to go to work, run the risk of getting a ticket, getting a fine, maybe losing their car? So that's a major step forward that California has made. Something, by the way, that would have been unthinkable 10 years ago. It's a reflection, really, of the very powerful role that the Latino community now plays in California, by their numbers, but also their prominence and by their presence in so many of the cities and counties of our state. And also, the legislature passed, and I signed a DREAM Act, which allows these students to go to University of California, the state colleges, and get the resident tuition, and also qualify for the Cal Grant program. So, and there'll be other things that we'll do. I've already indicated in the budget that the individuals that will be or should be legitimated in the country under the Obama program, the executive order, that they will be able to have access to Medi-Cal. So we're dealing with immigration. Healthcare. California in the last 3 years has increased from 8 million to 12 million, the people who are covered by Medi-Cal. That's a huge increase in the fundamental need of having adequate health care. And of course, we have Cover California, which is our exchange, and that's up and running with over 1 million participants. So in health care, we're doing quite a lot. Now, of course, there's a lot of things we're not doing, and you'll hear more about that in the legislative debates. But it's important to realize California, yeah, I mean, it's always more, and I'm always less. So that's just get used to it. Because without that, you know, Katie barred the door. So in addition to health care, education, I don't know how many people realize it, but the funding formula, which has been contested and debated and studied for the better part of 50 years, now embodies a principle that those kids who come from the more difficult circumstances, maybe because their parents don't speak English at home, or because they're below, they're at a very low level of income, or they're actually in foster care. In those three categories, that then triggers billions of dollars of more educational funding. There was a time back in the 70s when the great debate was, should funding be equal for all school districts? Well, now we've moved beyond that, and we recognize that unequals can't be treated the same because they're facing unequal barriers and challenges. And that's why under the local control formula, we do two things. Number one, we're spending a significant percentage of money based on real life extraordinary needs that families and students face. And number two, we've cut significant categorical programs or regulations, micromanagement efforts that have been written into the law for decades, and we've reduced those substantially and then allowed and empowered local school districts to make their own decisions. We've set out an accountability plan, certain priorities, and we're still working on exactly what the measures will be, but we have the basic 8 categories of what each school should achieve. And at the same time, we're allowing local communities to make those decisions. Because what I find is it's a lot of good ideas are brought up to Sacramento. They're embodied in laws, then they're embodied in regulations. But if you think of the task of the State Board of Education or the superintendent or the legislature trying to issue commands to 330,000 teachers to affect and shape the lives of 6 million students, kindergarten through 12th, you realize that the real activity of learning goes on in the classroom, goes on in the home, in the neighborhood, but it is not so amenable of micromanagement or thousands and thousands of regulations. The education code runs into volumes. Depending on how big the print, it could be 10 or 13 volumes of the state education code, telling in minute detail what needs to be done. So we've cut back a lot of that. At the same time, we're spending money in a more responsive way. And now with the revenues that have come into the state, substantially more. Just in 4 years per student, the additional state funding is $3,000 per student. So that's significant, and it's going to make an impact. I'm going to talk about two other things. Realignment. We've had a prison system that grew to 11% of the state budget and had at one time 175,000 people locked up, not even counting the jails. And the recidivism rate was extremely high, over 60%. Now we've changed that by realigning certain crimes and sanctions to the local counties. And the counties form a committee with the probation department at the head, and then with the sheriff, mental health, drug abuse treatment programs, vocational, and all the rest. And they are working on a range of alternative sanctions. And different counties do different things, and it's not all uniformly perfect by any means, but it is returning government, as in the school framework, also in the correctional framework. We're giving local authorities greater capacity, greater discretion to deal with the difficult problems. Climate change is the other thing I want to mention. California is leading the world, or at least leading the Western Hemisphere. I don't want to be overly grandiose. But our program to reduce greenhouse gases, and it's not just one thing. It's not stopping this project or this oil well, no, it's an integrated effort that requires renewable fuels, highly efficient automobiles, different land use rules, different the whole society and the electric grid itself, all redesigned and reshaped for maximum efficiency and the use of renewable energy. So in doing that, I set out a goal in 15 years to have 50% renewable energy. And the only way we're going to do that successfully is if we link up with adjoining states. So we have a wide region so that when the sun is still shining in Utah, we can get solar energy in California. And when the sun is going down in Arizona or Utah or Wyoming, we still have sun, perhaps wind, and we can move it all around. And if you have that flexibility, you get an extraordinary increase in efficiency. And all that takes investment. It takes properly aligned government policies, and we're doing that. Finally, I'd say something about transportation. We do have problems with our roads, both the cities and the state, and we're now fashioning some remedies for how we deal with that. Of course, like anything else, it costs money, and people don't like to pay more money. So we're trying to find a very pleasant form of revenue that could be, I won't say extracted, but located and discovered in a reliable way so that we can fix our roads. And that's something, and by the way, we can't do that just with Democrats. We need Republicans to be part of that enterprise, and I think there's a lot of goodwill there. Finally, on the drought and the oil spill, I should mention that. We're doing a lot on the drought. Proposition 1 gave us the money. We're working with all the different water districts, our state water board. It's not perfect, but the 25% reduction it's happening. It's going to look different in different places, but we're going to do everything we can, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's the water projects, or whether it's urban use. We're going to find ways of recouping rainwater, stormwater, reuse, recycle. I know people don't like toilet to tap, but it is memorable. It is memorable. You know, have you ever thought about how they do it on the spaceships? When they stay up there for 6 months, you got to recycle. Well, even down here, we got to figure out how to recycle. Got to use everything and reuse, because we are on a spaceship. It's called Planet Earth. And but don't worry, it's not going to happen overnight. And we'll test. We'll make it very good. And then, of course, we've had this oil spill, and I want you to know that California is taking, we're working with the Coast Guard and Environmental Protection Agency, California Conservation Corps, Fish and Game Department, volunteers. They're all pulling together to clean up that oil spill just as fast as they can, and to make sure that pipelines are safe and that people do what they have to maintain those things. Infrastructure and maintenance sometimes is not all that exciting, but it's real important. And things go wrong. In fact, things go wrong all the time. Every time I picked up the paper, I see something broken somewhere, like a bolt somewhere. But I want you to know, we are fixing every damn bolt that breaks. So don't worry about it. We're working very hard on that. And all these things get very complicated. So if you have a lot of questions, you should ask an engineer. That's all, and thank you. I really appreciate everything the Bay Area Council has done. We got a lot of things to do. The China visit was wonderful. The China office is thriving, and over the next 3 years, I don't know whether this will be my last term. I've been shopping around for other offices to run for. Haven't found one yet that I like, but the one I have, it's pretty damn good, and we're going to get a lot done with you together. We'll make San Francisco and Northern California and all California continue to be the wonderful place that we all know and love it to be. Thank you very much.